You're exhausted. Not from your job, not from your schedule. You're exhausted from carrying things that aren't even yours. Expectations that were never your dreams. Pain from situations that ended years ago. Identities you built to survive, but are now suffocating you. Everyone tells you to let go, but no one tells you why it feels impossible. Today I'm going to show you exactly what you're really holding on to, and the 3-step process to finally put it down. You'll discover what you're really holding on to. It's not what you think. Why your brain fights letting go like it's life or death. Spoiler alert, it thinks it is. And the 3-step process that actually works, without meditation or mantras. And if you stick around until the end, I'll share the one realization that changed everything for me. It's probably not what you think, and it might piss you off at first, but it'll set you free. Let's get real for a second. You already know what you need to let go of. It's the thing that keeps you up at 2 a.m., the thing you think about in the shower, the thing that makes your chest feel tight when you're alone. Maybe it's that relationship that ended months ago but still lives rent-free in your head. Maybe it's the version of success you thought you'd have by now. Maybe it's the way your family sees you, or the way you think they should see you. Maybe it's that business idea you've been clinging to even though it's draining your soul. You know what it is. You've known for a while. But every time you try to release it, your mind starts spinning stories about why you can't, why you need it, why letting go would be giving up, or being weak, or admitting failure. You know exactly what I'm talking about. But here's what's really messing with your head. You think you're being noble by holding on. You think you're being loyal, or responsible, or strong. You've convinced yourself that letting go would make you a quitter. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Holding on when something is clearly over isn't loyalty. It's fear. It's not strength. It's control. And it's not love. It's attachment to how things used to make you feel. Your brain has turned this thing into your identity. Without it, you don't know who you are. Without the struggle, you don't know what your story would be. Without the problem, you're afraid you'd be ordinary, invisible, nothing special. Most people think they're holding on to situations or people. They're wrong. Here's what you're actually holding on to. You're holding on to the story that thing tells you about who you are. You're not holding on to your ex. You're holding on to being someone who loves deeply and never gives up. You're not holding on to that job. You're holding on to being successful and stable. You're not holding on to that friendship. You're holding on to being loyal and needed. You're not holding on to the thing itself. You're holding on to the identity the thing gives you, the role it lets you play, the way it makes you feel important or special or different from everyone else. And here's the kicker. You're so busy maintaining this identity that you've forgotten who you actually are underneath it all. You've become addicted to the drama, the struggle, the story. Because without the story, you're terrified. You're just ordinary. The 5 universal burdens, and I guarantee you're carrying at least 3 of them right now. Number 1, the burden of potential. You're holding on to who you could have been, should have been, might still become. You're carrying the weight of unlived lives. Number 2, the burden of approval. You're holding on to needing certain people to see you in a certain way. You're carrying their expectations like they're your own dreams. Number 3, the burden of control. You're holding on to the illusion that if you just think about it enough, worry about it enough, try hard enough, you can control outcomes that were never yours to control. Number 4, the burden of perfection. You're holding on to the belief that you need to be flawless, have it all figured out, never make mistakes. You're carrying the weight of an impossible standard. Number 5, the burden of significance. You're holding on to needing your pain to mean something, your struggle to be special, your story to be important. You're carrying the need to be different, to be seen, to be remembered. Here's what no one tells you. You're not attached to these things. You're attached to the story they tell you about who you are. But here's the part that'll mess with your head. You can't let go because letting go feels like dying. And in a way, it is. You're not just releasing a situation or a person. You're killing the version of yourself that needed those things to feel safe. Think about it. When you imagine letting go of that thing, what comes up? Terror, emptiness, a void where your identity used to be. Your nervous system goes into full panic mode because as far as your brain is concerned, you are that story. You are that struggle. You are that role you've been playing. Without the drama of trying to fix that relationship, who are you? Without the stress of chasing that goal, what defines you? Without the comfort of that familiar pain, what's left? Your ego would rather suffer in a familiar prison than risk the unknown freedom of being nobody, because being nobody feels like death. And your primitive brain will do anything to avoid death, even psychological death. But here's what's really happening. You're not dying. You're just scared of living without a costume. Let me tell you something I've never shared before. I spent 3 years trying to let go of a business that was destroying my mental health. Not because I loved the business, because I was terrified of not being the successful entrepreneur. Without that identity, I didn't know who I was. Every morning I'd wake up with anxiety in my chest. Every night I'd lie awake thinking about problems I couldn't solve. I was working 18-hour days. My relationships were falling apart, and I hadn't felt genuine joy in months. But I couldn't let go. You know what I was really afraid of? Walking into a room and not having an impressive answer when someone asked, "What do you do?" I was afraid of being ordinary. I was afraid of admitting I'd built something that wasn't actually me. For 3 years, I chose misery over uncertainty. I chose a painful identity over no identity at all. I chose the devil I knew over the angel I couldn't see. And the whole time, I thought I was being strong. I thought I was being responsible. I thought I was being loyal to my vision. But I was just being terrified. You want to know the real kicker? You're not afraid of losing the thing. You're afraid of being nobody without it. You're not afraid of your ex moving on. You're afraid of not being someone who never gives up on love. You're not afraid of leaving that job. You're afraid of not being someone who has their life together. You're not afraid of letting go of that dream. You're afraid of being someone who's settled. Your attachment isn't to the person, the situation, or the outcome. Your attachment is to the character you get to play in that story. The victim, the hero, the martyr, the fighter, the loyal one, the special one. And here's the thing that'll blow your mind. That character you're so desperate to protect, it's not even real. It's a collection of thoughts and behaviors you adopted to feel safe in an unsafe world. It's a survival strategy that's outlived its usefulness. You've been holding onto a role you auditioned for years ago, in a play that's already over, for an audience that's moved on to other shows. You're not holding on to your ex. You're holding on to being someone who loves deeply. You're not attached to money. You're attached to the security of feeling enough. You're not clinging to success. You're clinging to not being ordinary. You're not holding on to your parents' approval. You're holding on to being the good child. You're not attached to that friendship. You're attached to being needed. You're not clinging to that project. You're clinging to being creative and special. You're not holding on to the pain. You're holding on to being deep and complex. You're not attached to the struggle. You're attached to being strong and resilient. You're not clinging to the problem. You're clinging to being the one who cares. Every single thing you can't let go of is actually you holding onto a story about who you think you are. And every story is just a collection of thoughts you've practiced so many times, you've mistaken them for truth. But here's what nobody tells you. The moment you stop performing these characters, you don't become less. You become more. More authentic, more creative, more magnetic, more alive. The thing you're afraid will happen if you let go? It already happened the moment you started desperately holding on. You already lost yourself. You already became nobody. You became a character in someone else's story instead of the author of your own. So what's this really costing you, more than you think? Let me tell you what holding on is really costing you. And I'm not talking about missed opportunities. I'm talking about your actual life force. You think you're preserving something precious by holding on, but you're actually bleeding out. Every day you spend maintaining a story that's not true, maintaining a relationship that's already over, maintaining a version of success that doesn't fit who you are. You're literally draining the energy that could be creating your actual life. You wake up tired not because you didn't sleep enough, but because you've been working the night shift in your mind, trying to solve problems that aren't actually problems, trying to control outcomes that were never yours to control. You're not just tired, you're spiritually exhausted, and most people don't even realize they're doing it until they're completely empty. Every ounce of energy spent maintaining an image is energy not available for creating your actual life. Think about how exhausted you are at the end of a day when you've been performing. You know that bone-deep tiredness that sleep doesn't fix? That's not from working too hard. That's from being someone you're not, all day, every day. It's from the constant micro-calculations. What should I say? How should I react? What will they think? Your nervous system is in a constant state of hypervigilance when you're performing a character. You're always scanning for threats to your image, always ready to defend a story that isn't even true. You're living in survival mode when you could be living in creation mode. Think about the last time you felt truly energized. I bet it was when you were being completely yourself, doing something that actually mattered to you, with people who loved you for who you really are, not for the show you put on. You can't connect authentically while performing a character. Every relationship you have is actually with your mask, not with you. People fall in love with your representative. They become friends with your performance. They do business with your persona. And you wonder why you feel so lonely, even when you're surrounded by people. The tragedy isn't that people don't love you. The tragedy is that you don't know if they would love the real you, because you never let them meet that person. You're so busy being what you think they want. You've forgotten what you actually are. And here's the kicker. The people who matter, the people who could actually love you, they can sense the performance. They can feel the distance. They can tell something's missing, but they can't put their finger on what. So they keep their distance too, and you think it's because you're not good enough, when really it's because you're not real enough. You're starving for genuine connection while serving everyone around you artificial ingredients. You can't build something real on a foundation of what other people want. Every achievement feels hollow because it's not actually yours. You climb the ladder only to realize it was leaning against the wrong building. You reach the goals that were never your goals. You succeed at a game you never wanted to play. And then you wonder why success feels like failure, why achievement feels like emptiness. The house you bought to impress people doesn't feel like home. The career you built to make your parents proud doesn't fulfill you. The relationship you stayed in to avoid looking like a failure doesn't feed your soul. The business you created to prove you're successful drains your creativity. Every single thing you've accomplished while wearing a mask belongs to the mask, not to you. You become successful at being someone else, which is the most sophisticated form of failure there is. You've been playing someone else's game by someone else's rules for someone else's approval, and you're shocked that the prizes don't satisfy your soul. You think you're being responsible by holding on? You're actually being selfish. You're depriving the world of who you really are. While you're busy holding on to what's not working, you're missing what could work. Your gifts, your perspective, your authentic way of being in the world, that's what the world needs. Not another performance, not another mask, not another person pretending to be someone they're not. Every day you spend being fake is a day the world doesn't get the real you. And the real you? That's irreplaceable. That's what you came here to give. So how do you actually let go? I'm going to give you the exact 3-step process. No meditation, no mantras, just brutal honesty. Okay, here's where everything changes. Most spiritual teachers will tell you to surrender and leave it at that. But surrender without action is just spiritual procrastination. Grab a piece of paper. We're doing this together, right now. No meditation, no mantras, just brutal honesty. Look, I've sat in meditation retreats for years, chanting and breathing and hoping for some cosmic download to fix my life. You know what actually changed everything? The moment I stopped trying to transcend my pain and started getting real about what I was clinging to. This isn't about becoming enlightened. This is about becoming free. And freedom requires you to look at the specific ways you're imprisoning yourself. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Right now. Because your soul has been waiting for this moment your entire life. So get that paper, I'm serious. Your breakthrough is on the other side of your willingness to be completely honest. Good. Now write down the one thing you know you need to let go of. Not the surface thing, the real thing. The thing that makes your stomach clench when you think about releasing it. Maybe it's the need to be seen as successful. Maybe it's the identity of being the victim in your story. Maybe it's the fantasy that your ex will come back and validate all your waiting. I'll wait. Really write it down. Now here's the question that changes everything. Write this. What identity will I lose if I release this? And then, what am I afraid people will think of me if I let this go? This is where it gets real. Because what you're holding on to isn't just a thing or a person or a situation. It's who you think you are. It's your entire sense of self. The successful person, the heartbroken lover, the spiritual seeker, the victim, the hero of your own story. What if none of that is actually you? Here's the part most people skip, and it's why their letting go never sticks. You have to feel the terror of being nobody. Not the romantic idea of ego death. The actual, gut-wrenching fear of having no identity at all. Close your eyes. I'm going to walk you through this. And it might be the most uncomfortable 30 seconds of your day. But it's also going to be the most liberating. Imagine you've let go of this thing you wrote down. It's gone. Completely. Feel the emptiness where it used to be. Feel the groundlessness. Feel like you're falling through space with nothing to grab onto. Don't try to fill it with positive thoughts. Don't try to replace it with something else. Don't try to make it spiritual or beautiful. Just sit in the void. Feel the panic. Feel the who am I without this terror. 30 seconds. Starting now. Close your eyes. Feel the fear of being absolutely nobody. Breathe. Open your eyes. That fear you just felt? That terror of dissolving into nothingness? That's not a warning signal. That's not your intuition telling you to hold on tighter. That's the doorway to freedom. Your ego thinks it's dying, and in a way, it is. But your soul is finally getting room to breathe. See, what you call you is just a collection of stories, identities, and attachments you've been carrying around like a backpack full of rocks. And you've been carrying it for so long, you forgot it wasn't actually part of your body. That empty feeling, that's not death. That's space. Space for who you actually are to emerge. Space for possibilities you haven't even imagined, because you've been so busy being who you thought you had to be. Now write this sentence, and I want you to mean it, even if you don't believe it yet. I don't need this thing to be worthy of love and respect. Write it down, then read it out loud. I want to hear your voice claiming this truth. Feel how that lands in your body. Notice if there's resistance. Notice if part of you wants to argue with it. That's normal. That's your old identity having a tantrum because it's losing its power over you. But underneath that resistance, there's something else. a quiet knowing, a recognition. Your soul recognizes this truth, even when your mind doesn't. Your soul has always known that your worth isn't dependent on what you achieve, what you possess, or what you control. You might not believe it yet. That's okay. Belief isn't required for truth to be true. The sun doesn't need your belief to shine, and your inherent worthiness doesn't need your belief to exist. Here's your homework, and I'm not calling it homework because it's optional. I'm calling it homework because your freedom depends on it. Do this exercise once a day for a week. Same piece of paper, same questions, same sitting in the void. Don't skip days because you're busy. Don't skip days because it's uncomfortable. Don't make excuses. Your consistency is the bridge between knowing the truth and living it. But here's what nobody tells you about what happens next. Here's the part that will either excite you or terrify you. Once you start releasing these false identities, once you start sitting in that empty space regularly, something emerges, something you've never seen before, something that's been waiting underneath all your stories and attachments your entire life. And when you meet that aspect of yourself for the first time, everything changes. We'll talk about that next week. Here's what nobody tells you about letting go. You don't become less. You become more creative, more magnetic, more successful in ways that actually matter. I know it sounds backwards, but everything you've been forcing becomes effortless when you stop trying so hard. The very thing you're afraid of losing, that's what's keeping you from having it. When I finally let go of needing to be seen as spiritual and evolved, something incredible happened. I became genuinely peaceful. I was surrounded by meditation cushions, crystals, posting deep quotes on social media, working so hard to look enlightened. But inside, exhausted, performing spirituality instead of living it. The moment I stopped trying to impress people with my wisdom, they started actually listening. When I stopped performing enlightenment, I started experiencing it. Your work changes. You stop performing and start creating. Your relationships change. You attract people who love the real you, not your mask. Your decisions change. You make choices from strength, not fear. You stop exhausting yourself, trying to control how others see you, and start trusting how you see yourself. You stop asking, what will make me look good, and start asking, what wants to be expressed through me. People who don't like the real you drift away, making space for those who do. You stop living for external validation and start living from internal knowing. You become unstoppable, not because you're forcing your way through life, but because you're finally flowing with it. You are not your achievements, failures, or relationship status. You are the awareness experiencing all these things, and that awareness already perfect. When you were 5, before you learned to perform for love, weren't you already enough? Nothing fundamental about your worth has changed. You've just layered stories on top of what was already complete. So here's your choice. Keep exhausting yourself trying to be who you think you should be, or trust that who you already are is enough, right now. The moment you stop trying to be impressive, you become magnetic. The moment you stop performing your worth, you start embodying it. Are you ready to come home to who you've always been? Comment, I'm ready, if you're done performing and ready to be real. And hit subscribe if you want more of these conversations that your soul has been waiting for.